Please, enough! Please, enough! You can do something else.
He's lost control of the borders, lost control of immigration, lost control of spending, and now has lost control of his cabinet and party.
Wow, is he ever losing control of himself?
Today I'm calling on Justin Trudeau to resign. He has to go.
You failed Canada! You've ruined our country!
Are you 22nd, you communist?
Please get the fuck out of BC.
In recent months, Canadians have become increasingly vocal about their frustrations with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, through verbal attacks at public events to harsh letters from his own Liberal Party members.
Waves of Liberal MPs have called for Trudeau's resignation, the latest from London, Ontario.
The continued leadership of Prime Minister Trudeau is just not tenable in light, in particular, of what's happened with Ms. Freeland. I've taken the decision to call for him outright to resign today.
As predicted by many, Trudeau announced his willingness to resign, depending on the identification of a suitable replacement.
Canadians deserve a real choice in the next election, and it has become obvious to me with the internal battles that I cannot be the one to carry the Liberal standard into the next election.
As we move forward, I'd like to ask you a quick favor to subscribe and like this video. It takes just a second and helps us so much. The final months of 2024 were turbulent for Trudeau. Public protests were rampant as Trudeau faced increasing resistance not just from opposition parties, but also from those within his inner circle. Members of his caucus have accused him of pursuing reckless strategies, prioritizing personal and political survival over the collective good. These pressures led the Atlantic Liberal Caucus and prominent figures like Calgary MP George Chahal to openly call for his resignation.
Within the letter, Chahal says, at this point, resigning is the only way for Justin Trudeau to maintain his dignity, expressing frustrations with the Prime Minister, saying Canadian concerns are falling on deaf ears. It is recommended that the Liberal Party caucus immediately start scheduling an expedited leadership process that is both transparent and democratic. Chahal continued to say he's made every effort to find an elegant way forward, but says at this point he feels any rational individual in this position would resign.
Justin Trudeau has constantly faced criticism, especially in public spaces.
You failed Canada! You've ruined our country!
An incident at a ski resort in British Columbia hinted at the level of disdain some Canadians feel toward their Prime Minister. As Trudeau made his way through the resort, he was met with shouts and heckles from members of the public who called for him to leave and voiced their discontent in no uncertain terms.
Mr. Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Please get the fuck out of BC.
Have a wonderful day, man.
Yeah, you suck.
The heckling at the resort caused debates among many, with some Canadians who saw this public outburst as a justified expression of frustration. However, there were those who found the insults both disrespectful and counterproductive. They argued that the Prime Minister should be allowed to engage in his personal life without being harassed, regardless of political disagreements. These critics suggested that while political protests are valid forms of expression, targeting a leader in a seemingly casual or personal setting like a ski resort was crossing a line. Beyond the physical confrontations, Trudeau has also been subjected to several online and offline insults.
Yeah, that's him, all right.
Posters, graffiti, and other forms of public displays have spread, mocking him in ways that go beyond the traditional boundaries of political criticism. For example, some posters have depicted Trudeau as a lapdog, a term that implies subservience or weakness, suggesting that the Prime Minister is simply following the rules of other political powers. The use of the lapdog label extended beyond just Trudeau, with other prominent figures within his political orbit also finding themselves targeted. Jagmeet Singh, the leader of the NDP, was similarly insulted, being called Trudeau's lapdog by critics who saw him as a political ally, willing to do Trudeau's bidding.
It's like a pause if anything goes on. If it's not, I'll say it's right.
Prime Minister's hey, listen, if you're homophobic, keep it to yourself. Your homophobia is very inappropriate. You're driving away and causing an accident. I'm right here. You can have a conversation if you like. Yeah, you can. Sorry about that.
The revolt against Trudeau within the Liberal Party was not confined to the backbenches or isolated MPs. In another powerful sign of the growing discontent, the Atlantic Liberal Caucus, a significant faction within the party, also voiced its disapproval of Trudeau's leadership. The chair of the Atlantic Caucus, MP Cody Bloy, penned a letter on behalf of the entire caucus urging the Prime Minister to step down.
Liberal caucus members met on December 23rd to discuss their position on Justin Trudeau's leadership. They sent a letter asking him to resign later that day. The letter, written by King's Hants MP Cody Blois, thanked Trudeau for his positive leadership over the last 9 years, but says it's time for a new leader.
Blois' letter was carefully worded, acknowledging Trudeau's past contributions to Canada and the Liberal Party, but ultimately making the case that those contributions were no longer sufficient to carry the party forward. While the Prime Minister has signaled his willingness to resign if a suitable replacement can be found, many Canadians and political observers are skeptical about whether he will ultimately follow through. Some speculate that Trudeau may be reluctant to relinquish power, having built a long political career and personal brand around his leadership. Could he seek to remain involved in Canadian politics in a different capacity? One possibility is that he might contest the leadership of the party again if the Liberals lose the next election. His announcement to resign has not been an outright departure from political life. The challenge is clear. If Trudeau resigns without a clear successor or leadership plan in mind, the Liberals risk losing political momentum. A leadership race could create division and infighting within the party, weakening it further in the eyes of voters who are already questioning its direction. During an election campaign, such a leadership vacuum could allow the opposition parties to capitalize on the Liberals' disarray. As Justin Trudeau nears the end of his leadership tenure, it's impossible to ignore the positive impact he has had on Canadian politics. His progressive policies on climate change, gender equality, and social justice earned him widespread support and an international reputation as a dynamic leader. For a time, Trudeau represented a breath of fresh air in Canadian politics, a leader who championed inclusivity and global cooperation. As we witness the unfolding political drama surrounding Trudeau's resignation, there are some questions to consider about the future of Canadian politics. Will Trudeau's resignation truly mark the end of his political career? Or is this merely a temporary retreat from leadership before he re-emerges in another form? His ability to maintain a public profile, even in the face of mounting criticism, suggests that his political journey may not be over just yet. What do you think? Let us know in the comments.